Good morning. This is Faith in Our Hometown, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin. And now, here's your host, Father Jay Friedel.
Well, good morning, everyone. I hope life is treating you all well. If we haven't had a chance to say Happy New Year's to everybody yet, Happy New Year's. But we're glad that you joined us again this morning. We're now in our 4th season, which is kind of amazing when I stop and think about that, of Faith in Our Hometown, our weekly conversation about things that matter to us as residents of the greater Joplin area, and especially in some ways for those of us who are people of faith and who are trying to solve some things perhaps in our community to make our community a better place. My guest this morning is going to be one of my neighbors in the downtown area of Joplin from Souls Harbor. So if any of you travel up and down Main Street, you've probably seen the signs for Souls Harbor. So we're going to be back in just a few minutes. We're going to talk to Dianna Gurley, who's the director there, and we're going to be talking a little bit about what they do and how they help contribute to the downtown and especially to the homeless. So we're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute. Don't go away. Get that cup of coffee and come back. And again, Souls Harbor is our guest for this morning.
I was in shock, and in denial, and I couldn't believe it was me. I was healthy, feeling well, but unbeknownst to me, after the colonoscopy, I found out that I had colon cancer. My name is Mario Guerrero. I'm an ethicist. I help people that are in a hospital and the medical staff process some of the difficult situations. In this case, it was the other way around.
Well, I'm glad they caught it earlier.
On my 50th birthday, I had a regular checkup. I wasn't concerned because I felt well. No family history of this type of cancer, and yet I developed this type of cancer. During the process of the colonoscopy, they were able to remove that polyp. And having that done within the hospital setting, they can just address all the issues right there and then. I'm a great believer in early detection. This is such a silent disease, and you really don't necessarily have symptoms. Go get checked. Follow up with your physician. Don't wait.
Well, again, thanks for being with us this morning. My guest this morning is Dianna Gurley, who is the director of Souls Harbor, which is our downtown homeless shelter. But Dianna, why don't you introduce yourself to our viewers this morning, and then say a little bit about yourself, and then tell us about Souls Harbor.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
No problem.
My name is Dianna Gurley, and I'm the director of Souls Harbor. We're down at 817 North Main and at 915 South Main is our homeless shelter. I've been working with them for about 6 years now. Souls Harbor has been in existence for 36 years now, and so we've seen them helped a lot of people.
Yeah. So a lot of people, who drive by see the sign, they notice a homeless shelter. But basically, what all is your approach, and who are the people who stay there with you?
Oh my. We get people from all walks of life. We get sometimes. We've had chemists, we've had a doctor who was in a stay that just came into town for a few days and just stayed with us for the experience mostly. Mm-hmm. We get people who are just down and out that are on Social Security and just can't make that money stretch. We deal with a lot of people that have addictions who come to us, and alcohol seems to be the most prevalent one, but they seem to do pretty good when they're with us, and we just give them the tools to be able to stand up on their feet and get a solid life underneath them. So that's primarily who we work with. We see, go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say, so when you work with those folks, do you guys do any other social services, or is it just primarily giving them the roof over their head for the evening, or how do you approach all that?
Oh no. We have different area agencies that we work with. We have some that we work with. Economic security is wonderful to us in the housing event. So we work with Section 8, and just a lot of the different area agencies help us with being able to place them. We have a number of drug assistance programs in the area, treatment programs in the area that we work with. So if we come across something like that, we can place them in those areas.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I've experienced, of course, working downtown, and we traffic back and forth, with helping folks in the downtown area, because a lot of times people land in town They just come to the downtown area and they don't know any, so they just kind of like come downtown, they start searching out kind of what's going on, who can help them. And a lot of times folks will come to the door, and of course, you along other agencies or things like that, but usually, I just say, well, the closest will be Souls Harbor around the corner if they need a room for the night or whatever, and I'll just say, have you all checked with the Souls Harbor? Oh, no, where's that? And so we'll just come right around the corner, and those kinds of things. So you guys are kind of the clearinghouse. You're kind of like the front door for a lot of the people who will land in our area who might need, to be referred to other places. Yeah.
And that is true. And especially we do have people, who come from other areas of the country who they've just relocated here and they don't know anything about the area. They're just getting that job, or they're looking to get a job because there weren't anywhere they came from. Or some people are just wanting to just have a different change and have a different place to live. And so this is where they come. And so we have to educate them on Joplin and the different areas that they can go to for the help and where to get those jobs. And
yeah, and in the stories, and you've heard many more of them in depth even than I have, because you wind up talking to folks while they're guests at your place. Yes. But I get amazed sometimes because people tell me these stories about, I was going from I'm going from, Florida to Maine, but yet they're in Joplin.
Yes.
And you just shake your head sometimes and go, how does that even happen? If you were going from Florida to Maine, how'd you do that? You're doing that by way of Joplin? It's just so strange to me.
It is amazing how that occurs.
Yeah.
It is amazing how that occurs. That does, though, bring up there was one fellow in particular who, he worked with nurses outside of their borders. The doctors outside their borders program, but he was a nurse that worked alongside them, I guess.
Sure. Uh-huh.
And to get his next assignment, he just came here to see what the area was like and see what the people were like and see if, this might be someplace he wanted to settle when he did decide to settle down. So he came and stayed with us till he got his next assignment. So,
well, there you go. So, yeah. And sometimes those are, traveling nurses or doing those kinds of things too, which I think is very interesting. So you've mentioned that nurse doing that. You've mentioned a doctor that stayed with you just to kind of just have the experience of staying with you. So basically, do you do an intake or something where you find out what those needs are, or you just kind of like, greet the folks when they come to the door and go from there?
No, we don't just, here's a bedroll. No, they do have to fill out an intake, and we do learn quite a bit about them when they do come. We'll learn probably within the first 30 minutes of them being there, where they came from, where they're headed, and within an hour or so we'll know what their needs are, so that we'll know what barriers they have and how to overcome some of their obstacles.
Yeah, and it becomes very helpful for us. Somebody shows up at 4:00 on a Wednesday afternoon or a Friday afternoon, and it's just like, no, I don't have an extra room. No, I don't have a place to put you. But we got some friends around the corner at Souls Harbor, and and again, for me, that's one of the important things as a person who lives and works in the area, to know that we've got some agencies that can help in an emergency.
Yes.
To give somebody a roof over their head, to do some of those things. And that becomes very critical because, you just don't like turning people away at the door without some solution or some place to go.
Absolutely.
And I might be able to feed them, or give them some food or do some of those kinds of things or make a referral like yourself. But, I can't meet all those needs when the folks come to the door.
Right.
Which is why it takes all of us together.
And we can meet a lot of those needs because they come first they usually need fed, then they need that bed, and then if they need clothing, then we can give them their clothing, whatever hygiene products they need or just any basic need for, survival, it's there. It's there. So we can address all their needs.
Yeah.
So
and again, I do know that this is one of those things that I think we all after the, everybody talks about Joplin. It's so entertaining for those of you who are new in the area. We all talk about before the tornado and after the tornado.
That's true.
It's just like,
that's true.
It was a pretty cataclysmic event, and so we mark a lot of time in those ways.
We do.
But after the tornado, it became very apparent that because there were so many things that people were bringing to the area and trying to drop, that we kind of got to the point where we were all kind of learning how to specialize a little bit.
Yes. Yes.
So we eventually got to the point where we used to do food and clothing. Well, then we got out of that business and got out of the clothing business. That, okay, there's plenty of places in town who do clothing. Let's specialize. Okay. And then we got to the point where we realized that, okay, There are other places where folks can get food baskets, cross lines, food if you don't cook in their own homes. But what about those who couldn't cook or doing those things? So we, okay, let's do a soup kitchen kind of thing. All right, you guys are one of our specialists in terms of a shelter.
Yes.
If we need a bed for somebody, myself and just about any of the other churches I know in the downtown area are going to say, hey, Souls Harbor's around the corner.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. That is our specialty.
Yeah.
To being able to house you.
And I love the fact that, again, you're that front porch, that kind of like, referral to all those other areas.
Yes.
Yeah. So how many people do you serve in a month or a year or those kinds of things so that our listeners can kind of get a feel for what you do?
We've housed 3,400 people so far this year. Is what we've housed.
Well, that was in 2017.
No, so far in 2018.
2018.
Yeah, we've housed a lot of people this year.
So top of 2018, and now in the new year, do you start overcounting in January again? Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so 2018, you did 3,400 people.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people, folks.
That is a lot of people.
And again, I'm just going to say on behalf of me, and I know on behalf of all those people that needed your services, I am so glad you are there, because what that means is that were 3,400 people that I didn't have to turn away and say, I'm sorry, I can't help you.
Yeah.
Now, they didn't all come to my place first, but I'm just saying the ones that did come to my place, I at least had a place to refer them to.
True.
Yeah, so 3,400 last year. So what's a typical day like for you guys down there?
Oh my.
Yeah, I know this typical is, I know, but go ahead, talk a little bit about that.
It's very busy. The typical day, you're going to get them all up in the morning. Of course, getting the house done, getting the chores all done up is always an event.
Now, do they help with that when they stay?
They do help with that. Everybody's assigned a chore, so it's just like being at home with your parents. You're going to clean house. So we do that, and then it's a matter of finding out whether they, figuring out whether they need to go for the housing agencies, and if they do, give them the directions for that. And then if they need to go do something with their Social Security, give them direction for that. If they need to go get some kind of education started, we help them with that. If there's counseling that needs to be done, we help with setting those things up as well. So it's a matter of figuring out just where it is somebody needs to go to, advance themselves, and then setting to work on. So a typical day is, talking to a lot of agencies in the town to figure out how to help them over this hump.
Got most of those numbers memorized, don't you?
Absolutely.
Exactly. All right, so like for example, just give us an idea. So how many people can you hold like per night?
56.
Okay, so you got 56 beds, and split male, female. Do you have like certain rooms for certain folks, or?
24 of those are male. The rest are all women and children. The men stay downstairs in a dorm, and the women live upstairs. They have rooms where there's like 3 to 4 people per room. If it's a family, though, it's just like a mom and the kids. Although this last couple of years, we've experienced a big influx of single fathers.
Interesting.
So then
that makes your housing stuff a lot more complicated, doesn't it? Yeah.
It does. So then we had to make some special rooms on one end of the hall in the women's dorm, just for the men and the children, so that we can keep all the children upstairs with their parents. So it's been interesting.
Well, my guest this morning is Dianna Gurley. Dianna is the director at Souls Harbor, which is our homeless shelter in the downtown Joplin area. And we've been talking a little bit about Souls Harbor, how it runs, how it operates, and we're going to be back to continue with that part of the conversation. We're going to take a real quick break, so you might want to warm up your coffee or whatever, and we're going to be right back.
You're watching Faith in Our Hometown on KSN TV, brought to you as a community service of Mercy Hospital, Joplin.
Well, again, we're glad that you joined us for another Sunday morning here at Faith in Our Hometown. We are talking this morning with Dianna Gurley, who's the director at Souls Harbor, which is in downtown Joplin. We've been talking a little bit about their structure and their day and who their guests are. So, we've talked a little bit about, families, single parent families will stay with you and those kinds of things. We talked about how many you might serve in a year. How many of those are short term? I mean, they're all kind of short term, but how many are like one night, and how many are folks that we're helping, you know, kind of get back on their feet? How many are like passing through, and how many are, because I mean, I've met all kinds of people who fit all these descriptions.
That's true. I would say probably about 20-30% are just passing through.
Okay.
It's not, yes.
So just here for a night or two. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the larger bulk, so like 70% maybe,
Yeah.
70 to 80%, okay, are people who we're trying to help get restarted.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that makes a big difference, you know, because it's one thing to, you know, I mean, you know, trust me, it'd be a lot easier to have Souls Harbor set up down by the highway rather than being in downtown, because that's a challenge for many of them. But when folks really need a roof over their head, like, you know, I'm just thinking now that we're in cold weather, okay, that's going to become a little bit trickier for a lot of people.
And it becomes trickier for us also, because at that point, you don't have to put a cap on the number of people that you have in the house. We have regulations that limit the number most of the year, but during the winter, they take that cap off, and it doesn't matter. They can come and they can stay with us, and so
as long as you got room to put them.
We'll get like 20 to 30 extra people a night, so it's nothing to have between 80 to 100 people in the house in the evening. So
okay.
Pretty crowded, but
Yeah.
But everybody seems to do really well with it, so I'm impressed with that. But
yeah, do you have a whole lot of problems with some of the guests?
no, for the most part, no. Most of them are very respectful. Sometimes, you know, there's that hard case that just hasn't quite adjusted to things, I think. And so there is that hard case, but not that many.
Yeah,
No,
good.
Not that many.
Good, because you know, and sometimes, you know, it's like, you know, you struggle because you really want to help everybody, but every once in a while they make it really kind of difficult to help once in a while.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They do.
But I'm glad that that's not a big issue for you. I mean, you know, every once in a while I'll hear from somebody and I'll say, well, you know, I need a place to stay tonight. I'm just like, well, have you been around the corner of Souls Harbor? And every once in a while somebody will say to me, I couldn't stay there because I broke the rules or something like that. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right, well, then your other options are, you know, but it's like, well, I don't know that I can help you, you know, because again, I don't, you know, it's funny, when I was pastor out in Piedmont, Van Buren, and Williams, Missouri, in Piedmont, it was very interesting because we had an extra room in the church. Mm-hmm. And if somebody was passing through town, I mean, you know, we were the one right there at the crossroads of the two highways.
So you stayed.
And I had that extra room in the church, and it was just kind of like, nope, I'm not putting you up in the motel. I'm not doing that. But I'll feed you. And if you need to stay tonight before you pass on your way, I've got this room here, you know.
That's very helpful.
The people who, and I was so happy to have it because, you know, the people who really needed it, you could tell because they would just say, oh, we were so grateful, thank you so much, you know, and it's just
Absolutely.
like, you know, but, you know, there were a lot of people who just said, no, I don't want to stay here. And they'd keep moving on. Well, that's when you know they really didn't need you that much.
That's true.
But it was wonderful to have it for the ones who really did need the space and the roof over their head, and they were grateful.
It's always wonderful to have that person that turns around and really thanks you for having a place for them and really enjoyed the fact that they could stay with you and got something out of it. It's always great. That's always the good moment.
Yeah. And I just, again, on behalf of all of us here in Joplin, and especially all of us in the downtown area, I just want to say I'm grateful that you guys provide that service. You know, and we got to give kudos to the folks over at Watered Gardens too. But I mean, we're in kind of some ways, you know, everybody specializes, and Watered Gardens is really designed specific, you know, in a lot of ways for people to like really get to work and get themselves, you know, moving up that ladder. Whereas, you know, you're willing to take somebody that may not fit into a program or do some of those things and bang, but you're gonna, you know, still be there to kind of help in the emergency, which is great.
We take care of some of the harder cases. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
We do. But,
yeah, and again, I'm just grateful that you're there to do it, you know?
well, thank you. We appreciate that very much.
So what would you consider, for our viewers, what would you consider one of those hard cases?
I would say that was probably, and he's my favorite story to talk about too.
Oh, good.
Was a young man who he would get drunk, and we would pick him up and we would clean him up, and then he would come into the house. You have to be sober and you have to be straight to stay there.
Yep.
And so he would come into the house and he would stay with us for a few months, and he would be doing real well and think he was going to go back out on his own. And we went down this road for a few years. And finally, there was that, I think it was his seventh stay. It was his seventh stay.
There's a joke going through my head right now. A seventh stay.
His seventh stay.
Instead of seventh day.
He caught.
Yep.
It caught, and he's been sober to this day, and he still comes
God
back and
love him.
volunteers for us and helps us in any way that he can. So.
Amen. Now there's a blessing.
Yes.
And and that's one of those stories of hope that basically just says, and I think anybody that's ever dealt with somebody who's been down and out, it's a beautiful thing when you finally see them get to that point where they can reach inside and throw that lever that basically says, wait a minute, I can help in my own future. I can make some good choices. I can move forward with some help.
And that is one of my favorite questions to ask too when they do come to us is, are you done? Have you had enough? Are you done? Are we ready to turn this corner? Are we ready to start life over? There is another way to do it. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Are you ready? It's time.
Yeah.
So.
And I love the fact that he did it. And I also love the fact, God love him, that he's there volunteering now.
Absolutely.
I just think that's there's so many blessings in that story.
There
I love
is.
it.
There is.
And again, the patience sometimes that it takes. But I mean, you
Oh,
don't
my.
just let him in, you didn't just let him in, you'd say, no, if you're going to be here, you're going to have to work at this and you're going to have to do those things. But yeah. But kind of a wonderful. I love that. That's what we call a long drawn out success story.
It is a long drawn out success story, but oh my, the payoff when you get there.
Exactly. So what could folks do if somebody has been listening this morning and says, I love the ministry that they're doing down there. What would they do to help? How would they help you?
Oh my, you could come spend an hour or two at the shelter, and you could just volunteer there, meet some of the people, talk about, you could come in, you could cook a meal, you could serve a meal. That always makes a big difference when you can come in and just hang out with us and work and do something there. That always makes a big difference.
Yeah. So I'm sure that you'd also take donations if anybody wanted to do that.
We do take donations. We take donations in clothing because we help with that too.
Right.
If you wanted to bring food, yes, we have a lot of mouths we feed. One thing we suffer from the very most is lack of toilet paper and paper towels a lot of times.
Oh, there you go. Maybe if you're shopping this week and you want to pick up some extra paper towels or you want to pick up some extra toilet paper and maybe drop them by. If a church out there or something wants to do a little bit of a drive,
absolutely.
That'd be something they could assist with in terms of Souls Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to flash your phone number up on the screen for everybody so that they know how to get in touch with you.
Okay.
Okay. And again, for all of you that need it, it's 417-623-7927. I don't see it on the screen, so maybe they're having trouble with it, but let me just say it again. So it's 417-623-7927. Okay, and they can ask for you or somebody that answers the phone will be able to make sure we get you to the right spot to do some of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So again, volunteering and or donations, those kinds of things. All those things will help. All
absolutely.
right.
Absolutely.
And let me ask this question, Diana. And I've never heard the answer to this because I've never asked the question. Was Souls Harbor started by a particular group or a particular religion or just, what's its history?
Actually, what happened was Art and Georgia Jones were passing through town and they were on their way to New Mexico. They were missionaries. And as they were going through town, Art just happened to see a guy out on Main Street who was pretty roughly dressed. And he asked some questions around to find out if there was a homeless shelter in Joplin or was there any kind of assistance for this fellow. And the answer was no. And so that's when they decided, after a few days of prayer, that this is where they were going to stay and they were going to start that shelter.
They opened up shop.
They sure did.
Wow.
They sure did.
That's just kind of cool when I stop and think about that. If missionaries on the road and let the mission call them from right there down in downtown,
Absolutely.
From right on Main Street.
Absolutely. 36 years ago.
36 years ago. Now, how long were they here? How long did they work in the mission before they left? Or did they retire? They passed away?
Now, Art passed away 10 years after it started. Art passed away. And there was another couple, Joanne and Marvin Lewis, who they're still here today. Well, Marvin has passed on. But they started
you women
out with
live
them.
a little longer than us guys. I'm just saying.
Just a little.
Yeah,
Just
usually.
a little. They stayed here in the area with them, and they joined them. They were the very first dollar that Souls Harbor was given. That was their very first donation. So they coupled with them, and they stood with them as they started this mission. And after Art was gone, 10 years later, he had passed on, Miss Georgia went on back into the mission fields, and Joanne and Marvin stayed and ran it. And then Marvin passed away here a few years ago, and 6 years ago, Miss Joanne retired.
There you go.
So, and then
And that's where you came in the scene.
yeah,
Good.
yeah,
All right. And you've been with them 6 years now.
6 years.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
been
Any
wonderful.
special dreams for 2019? Anything that you're looking to do? Any special projects, or just more of the same?
Probably just more of the same this year. I just became director myself a year and a half ago. So we've been doing a lot of projects. We've refurbished our chapel all the way down to new seats. We've been doing a lot of work in the housing unit. We've tightened up a lot of the finances. We've started all kinds of new programs. We have new job employment programs. We have new counseling programs. We have new Bible studies that have started. So there's been a lot of changes already this year that have brought in a whole new facelift to Souls Harbor, which has been wonderful.
Okay.
So this next year, kind of settling in some of those and working out some of the kinks on those things still yet, but and then seeing where we want to go from there.
Good for you. So it's kind of exciting. It's just kind of like more of the same, but kind of like new and improved.
New and improved.
There you go.
New and improved.
So if you could do one thing in the next 2 months for Souls Harbor, what would it be? Dream big now, because they're going to be listening, and we're going to see whether or not anybody out there wants to support your dream.
Ha! Transportation for folks at the house.
Okay?
Transportation, because that is always one of our biggest things. Is getting them to their new jobs, getting them to classes, getting them to counseling. That's one of the biggest things.
Yeah. So so if anybody's got, transportation or whatever that they would like to do that, or again, volunteer perhaps to do that. I mean, do you run
Yes.
any volunteer for transportation?
Actually,
this point?
we do it.
Okay. Yeah, that's,
We volunteer to
you
do it.
You volunteered yourself, didn't you?
We volunteer ourselves.
All right, so maybe a little transportation, maybe to improve the transportation situation down there. So if anybody's
Absolutely.
dreaming big and wants to help Dianna, then that would be the thing in terms of being able to do that. Well, we're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute. Don't go away.
Everyone on board dreamed of a new life in America. The Sisters of Mercy had a different dream: to serve all who had need. From the first hospital Sister Frances Ward built to the world's first virtual care center, we continue to answer the same call: to bring mercy home to you. Mercy, in every era, your life is our life's work. Learn why we serve at mercy.net/legacy. In Ireland, the first Sisters of Mercy were called the Walking Sisters because every day they went out in search of women and children who needed healing or help. Mercy continues to answer the same call, dedicated to the health of every woman who comes to us for care. Mercy, in every era, your life is our life's work. Learn why we serve at mercy.net/legacy.
Well, again, thanks for joining us this morning for Faith in Our Hometown. My guest, Dianna Gurley, Director of Souls Harbor. In the downtown area, we get all kinds of folks coming in. This is one of the ways that we can help attend to those folks who need a little bit of a boost. Thanks for being out there, and God bless. Have a good Sunday.
Thanks for watching. Faith in Our Hometown can be seen Sunday mornings at 6:30 and 9 a.m. on KSN. Brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.